I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special and very important live stream that we are doing Sunday afternoon, EST, Eastern Standard Time. We are, of course, going to be talking to you about Iran, and that is why we do these extra streams, because there's so much happening, and also because my regular live time, which is 7 p.m. EST on Tuesdays, is not very conducive to people who live in other parts of the world. We started this, years ago before we were doing so much international coverage. And so that's a reason we do these additional streams. And so to make sure that you don't miss them, please do subscribe at youtube.com/The Katie Halper Show. You hit subscribe and then the bell. Obviously, this is totally free. It's just a way to make sure that you don't miss them. And also, please do like the stream, because that helps bring more people to the stream and helps with fight against the algorithmic suppression. If you can swing it, of course, please do become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And for $5 a month, you get bonus content. If you can't swing that, you can still make the show happen, because we could not do it without your support. For $1 a month, so that's $12 a year. Again, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. So we are about to be joined by two very important guests, very great perspectives that you absolutely do not hear in mainstream media. One is show favorite, Dr. Mohammad Marandi, who's professor of literature and English literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. And another show favorite, Haim Bresheeth Zabnner, who is a historian, the author of An Army Like No Other, How the Israel Defense Forces Made a Nation, and he is himself an Israeli, I guess, self-exiled Israeli based in London. So we're just going to start the show right now and bring them on and find out the latest in what is happening in Iran and to Iran and what Iran is doing about it. Hi, Dr. Marandi, welcome. And hi, Haim. And
hi, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You must be one of the most tired people around, Dr. Marandi, because you are always appearing on shows that will, not just shows that are friendly, but adversarial shows ranging from Christiane Amanpour to Piers Morgan. So you must be exhausted physically and emotionally. And of course, I can't imagine what it's like to be in Tehran right now. So let's just start off by, can you share what it's like there?
Well, just 15 minutes ago, there were sounds of explosions. Right now, across Tehran, there are mourning ceremonies in the major squares and roundabouts. So there are large numbers of people gathered in different parts of the city. They don't want, I suppose they don't want all of them in one place. But yesterday, the government, after the elementary school was bombed, and I think something like 165 girls from an elementary school were slaughtered, the government shut down all the schools. So schools are closed, and universities are closed too. So I'm supposed to have a class tomorrow, which won't be held. I assume it will be online later on, but for now, we don't have. I don't think I have class tomorrow. And so the government has encouraged people who don't need to be in Tehran to leave if they have a place to go. So it's less crowded, but not that crowded. And the streets are packed with people. I was speaking to a couple of my friends who are on the streets, and they were saying it's extremely crowded, but they're sort of they're in mourning, and their ceremonies to commemorate the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei. So Tehran is, if you walk in my neighborhood, many of the shops are open, but I would assume, I haven't asked, but if you ask a shop owner, I would assume that they will say that they don't have that much business.
Right. I'm just going to show I know that you can't see this, Dr. Marandi, but I am going to show so people see this scene. You tweeted this on February 28th, people on the streets commemorating the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei. So I'm going to share this right now, just again, so people have a sense of what is happening. And And can you tell us what they're saying, Dr. Marandi?
No, I can't hear it well.
Oh, you can't hear it. Okay,
something
sorry.
Very faint.
Okay.
I can hear it but it's very faint.
Okay, well, yeah, it's the video that you posted, and it's the more important thing, of course, is the visual, to see these people out waving flags and commemorating Khamenei. And can you tell us, by the way, a little bit about Khamenei? Because as we all know, the closest you'll get in Western media to a critique of what's happening is that these people are evil, they're brutal dictators, but it's just not good. It's just not a good idea strategically to decapitate them.
Yeah, those are the opponents of Trump in the mainstream.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, because they say the same about me all the time. But he was a political since his youth. He was arrested many times under the Shah, I think 6 times, but I'm not quite sure. He was exiled to Sistan and Baluchistan, where he made a lot of very good connections in that part of the country. Then, after the revolution, he became one of the leaders of the revolution, but he was the youngest, I think. When the war started, he left Tehran as a volunteer, even though he didn't have military training. He went as a volunteer to fight when Saddam invaded the country. It was a very bad time because the Iranian army was unprepared. A lot of the generals had escaped the country. Some were arrested. A lot of junior officers and conscript soldiers had left during the revolution in solidarity, but the army was unable to properly reestablish itself, so it was weak, and the guards back then had nothing but light weapons. So he fought as a volunteer for a few months. Then he came to Tehran. He was assassinated, and his shoulder was badly injured. He almost died. And that's, if people notice, he can't use his right arm. You
said he was assassinated. I think you meant that they tried to assassinate him.
Yes, they tried to assassinate him, and he was badly wounded as he was giving a speech. The MEK assassinated him, the same MEK that has offices across Europe and the United States, and has a big camp in Albania where they have 3,000 or 4,000 people, all funded by the United States, of course. So right now it's a big troll farm with 4,000 Iranians. But then after he was badly wounded, he has very beautiful handwriting, but since his arm was badly damaged, he writes with his left hand. And he writes actually pretty good, but in any case, he can't use his right arm, and or very little. And then he became president during the final months of the war, when the United States entered the war on behalf of Saddam. So this is not the first time that the United States enters a war against Iran. This is the 3rd time, when during the final months of the war, the United States began attacking the Iranian Navy, Iranian oil installations. It shot down an airliner with 290 people, and it murdered a lot of naval officers as well. So at that time, since Iran was fighting on 2 fronts, like now, he left the presidential office and went to the front lines, which was very dangerous, and it was a very unstable time. But that's the sort of person he is. He's not the sort of person who hides. And when he became leader, he is fluent in 4 languages. He's his Persian is excellent. He knows Persian literature. He knows a great deal about Persian literature, Arabic literature, and Azeri literature because he is Azeri. His Khamenei is a city in Azerbaijan in Iran, and so he knows these three languages and their literature well. And you may be surprised to know that he is fluent in English, and he has read novels in English, and
including Les Mis, right?
If I'm not mistaken, the novel that he liked the most, which is a French novel, is Les Miserables, the Miserables by Victor Hugo. I may be wrong, but I think that was his favorite Western novel. So he is that sort of person, highly educated. He's a jurisprudent, yeah. So he was in his office when he was assassinated by the Trump regime and the Netanyahu regime.
Well, I'm so sorry about that, and you know, it's shameful as a member of as a U.S. citizen. It's very upsetting to know that this is what my government is doing right now. I wanted to ask you, Haim.
By the way, in the airstrike, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
In the airstrike, a granddaughter of his was murdered, right. a little girl, and one of his daughters, his son-in-law, was also killed. And one thing that I would also add is that he supports the private sector, but he is a big supporter of social justice. So he pushes each administration to fund projects and fund neighborhoods that are disenfranchised, public schooling, healthcare, and so on. So he is, I can't say he's a leftist because that has a certain connotation to it, but he's very heavily influenced by the idea of social justice.
And kind of a populism?
Since I don't know exactly, I never understood exactly what populism means because it means so many different things to so many different people. But when it was not popular to be advocating social justice, he was doing so. In the 1990s, when the Soviet Union collapsed and the West and the left became completely discredited across the world, and liberalism became the thing, and it was the end of history, as Fukuyama said. A lot of religious leftists in Iran, who were the hardcore revolutionaries back then, they flipped and became liberal. So the leftists in Iran, those who were the social justice people and leftists in Iran, who were influenced by socialist ideas, or at least they had similar models in their mind in certain respects, they too became disillusioned and they became liberal. And so a lot of the liberals that you hear of in Iran today, they were the people who actually took over the embassy. And now they've flipped. So at that time, when the liberal mindset has become very popular among elites in Iran because of the collapse of the left, he was pushing for social justice, and a lot of people back then thought it was misguided. But I think in the long run, it turned out that he was right, and if we had listened to him, the situation today would be different.
And sorry, so what do you mean by social justice? Just like an example of a program that you're referring to, or an idea, so people understand.
Like public schooling, like healthcare, like investing in impoverished neighborhoods, and creating jobs for the disenfranchised.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that some administrations were less interested in. Some were more interested in this. Actually, the last two presidents, meaning the late President Raisi, had that mindset, and the current president contrary to what some people think, he is also like that. He was the Minister of Health, and when he was the current president, when he was the Minister of Health, he was advocating the National Healthcare Network, which is very important for people who are disenfranchised and who are not well off.
Right. And when you say things would have been different today if he had been listened to, can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, the gap between rich and poor has increased significantly. Part of it is because of the sanctions, because since when there are sanctions, a lot of the economy goes underground, and that creates corruption in itself. But policies that some of the administrations pursued widened the gap between rich and poor. It's not like the United States where you have, like, I don't know, something like BlackRock and that. It's not that bad, but the gap between rich and poor is much wider than it was, let's say, 3 decades ago. The first couple of decades after the revolution, a lot was done for social justice, but then the government began to tilt towards greater liberalism, different administrations. But more recently, as I said, the last 2 presidents were advocating social justice, but since they're under sanctions, I can't say their hands are tied, but it's more difficult to get things done.
Of course, right. And Haim, I don't know if you can move back, Haim, because your label, your name is blocking your face a little bit. It's not a huge deal if you can't, or if it, yeah, perfect. Okay. Haim, you are someone who obviously is extremely critical of Israel, to say the least. You were raised there. You wrote this book on the IDF, and you, like many, predicted on the Katie Halper show, you predicted that Iran was going to be attacked. What can you tell us about what went into that, and also if you are in touch with people in Israel and how they are experiencing the response from Iran? And of course, just a reminder, because you would never know this from Western media, it is a response by Iran. It is not an instigating attack. And as we see every time that Iran does respond, they use restraint that the West does not use. They do not target schools or refugee camps, for example. Not that there are refugee camps in Israel, but just to contrast the style of warfare being fought by Israel and the U.S. with the defensive responses from Iran. But please tell us your thoughts on this.
I want to first say that I share the mourning and sadness of the Iranian people and Dr. Marandi. This is a terrifying event. The murder of an 86-year-old intellectual, cleric, a pacifist, someone against nuclear weapons, someone who has never started a war against any of its the Iranian neighbors. Iran was attacked a number of times by the West and by Saddam, of course, for the West, but Iran never attacked any other country. Despite the provocations that Israel has over the years, over the decades, I should say, threw at Iran, murdering many, many Iranians in Iran and abroad, Iran did not attack Israel until it was attacked itself. So I think I want to express the solidarity and shock of people in the movement that I have helped to found, Jewish Network for Palestine. It's an anti-Zionist group in London, and we're supporting, of course, the Palestinian struggle for liberation. I mean, supporting Iran in its struggle against the colonialist and imperialist that attacked it illegally, immorally, totally illogically, unnecessarily, and brutally. Now, I'm actually connected to an anti-Zionist group, not very large, in Israel, and we are speaking every day, many times. And it's quite shocking to see a whole society singing and dancing the murder of Ayatollah Khamenei. This is really disturbing. And it's, of course, coming after 2.5 years of genocide, which is terribly disturbing. And the fact that Israeli Jews are united in this hatred is, for someone like me who grew up there. I wasn't born there. I was born in a refugee camp after the Second World War, but I was an Israeli. I'm not anymore. I'm an anti-Zionist, ex-Israeli. It's still shocking to see Jews doing something so un-Jewish. The actions, the reactions, the happiness about the brutality that they are affecting. It's highly disturbing. Of course, it's also disturbing to live in the belly of the beast in London, where Islamophobia, racism combine to create an atmosphere of hysteria, I can only call it. For many weeks, myself and a small group of Iranian and other friends have tried to move the main anti-war organization, Stop the War Coalition, to call for a demonstration, a public large demonstration against the coming war. We've tried this for a month or so. They refused to meet us. They refused to discuss this with us. And the only reaction was, when the war will start, we'll call for a demonstration. This is an organization that in 2003, and I was involved, called for a mass demonstration against Britain and the United States because of the plan to attack Iraq. Now, Iraq was not a peaceful country. It attacked and kept attacking Iran for 8 years, causing enormous damage to the Iranian people and to the infrastructure and to morale and to the society. It also attacked Kuwait, as you know. So Iraq was not a model country by any chalk, but we came out, 2 million of us came out before the war and said, Iraq, it does not own and does not have and does not use weapons of mass destruction. This is a lie. It did not attack the United States on 9/11. This is also a lie. And we are totally against the West attacking Iraq. We've done that 23 years ago, and we wanted to do it about this coming war, which we're in the middle of now. And we were not allowed to do it. And actually, after weeks, we called for a demonstration on Friday because we knew the war is coming. So we called a demonstration on Saturday, a small organization. And we had that demonstration, and there were a few hundred people there. And my heart was crying because I remembered the 2 million people that we were in 2003, and we could have done it again if the organizations were doing what they were supposed to do. So there's a lot of Islamophobia in London. I mean, London was the capital of Islamophobia once. It's not the case now, but it is still very bad. And some of the people on the left, and I'm on the left myself, I'm a Marxist, but some of the people on the left are anti-Iranian in a way which is quite disgusting, unjustified, and not uncalled for. So I think, both being, an ex-Israeli and living in Britain that started the Palestine problem, but also in 1953, and even before 1953, created problems for the people of Iran that they are still suffering from now. So basically, ever since Britain and then later the United States got involved in Iran, the people of Iran are suffering. And we send you, Dr. Marandi, and your people our regards and hope that you will withstand this attack, because it is unjustified.
Well, actually, first of all, thank you very much. I was also in attendance at that anti-war march in 2003 in London, where Jeremy Corbyn and he spoke, and so did George Galloway and others. It was massive. But it's sad that this is where things are today. And I think Heidi and I discussed this the last time we were on the show, that many leftists and also many Salafists have this very irrational hostility towards Iran. And by the way, as you were speaking, there was a massive explosion pretty close to where we are. The windows were shaking for like 30 seconds. So later on, I have to go and figure out what happened. And then close by, I don't know if you heard, but people were a bit afraid. Yes, this is
Dr.
where
Marandi, I
things
just want to say, if
stand.
anything happens, that you need to please prioritize your safety over, as much as we are here to hear you, we want you to prioritize your safety over continuing to talk to us. So obviously.
Well, thank you very much. But yeah, it's quite amazing that we had almost 160. I'm not quite sure about the number, because the number kept going up. But they struck a school yesterday morning, an elementary school, and all those kids, all those girls were slaughtered, yet Western media says nothing about it. They're completely indifferent. Or they, in the city of Minab, a small city, so 160 little girls slaughtered in an elementary school in a small city. That I think has a big impact on the entire city, the entire town. It's not like the city of Tehran or London or New York. I mean, it would be catastrophic anyway. But for a small town, I think it would have very another layer of suffering and pain, and that would accompany it, alongside the pain and suffering that we would have in other bigger cities.
And of course, we care in the West
also,
so much about women and girls, right? I mean, this is something we
the
care
irony
about.
is, of course, absolutely, and the irony, of course, is that yesterday another place that they struck was a gymnasium where girls were playing volleyball, and they killed a large number of these girls. I think almost 20, from what I read in a report. So when it comes to Iran, it doesn't matter. Yet when it's Saddam Hussein, even though he was, as rightly pointed out, a monster who invaded Iran, he used chemical weapons, he invaded Kuwait, but in order to stop a war, they were willing to go to the streets and be active across the UK, and I was a part of it. I think I was actually in the first anti-war demonstration. It was over Afghanistan in Birmingham, when Blair came to Birmingham to inaugurate the European Studies Institute or something like that at the University of Birmingham. There were like 50, 60, 70 of us there protesting. But then we all went to London for the big war after Afghanistan, and then the build up to the war in Iraq. We all went to London. We took the train, and we saw the people of the UK go in such large numbers. But when it comes to Iran, it's total indifference. As rightly pointed out, Iran, which has not invaded any country. And yeah.
And what is the plan from Iran in terms of responding to this? I mean, again, it is so the cognitive dissonance between what the Western media says about Iran and what Iran actually is in terms of their response to these attacks, and also the Strait of Hormuz, which is something that we actually, Brad really wanted to talk about last time, and obviously it's more relevant than ever. But can you talk about that aspects, please?
Well, just like this is the third war that Iran has been a victim of after the revolution. First, it was Saddam Hussein, where the West supported Saddam. So did the Soviet Union, but the West did much more as time went by. And they gave him chemical weapons. I survived 2 chemical attacks. They massacred, Saddam massacred 6,500 people within minutes in the city of Halabja. And the second war, and the United States, as I was saying earlier, entered the war on behalf of Saddam near the end during the last months. And the second war, of course, was the 12-day war, which we had 8-9 months ago. And the United States was negotiating with Iran. At the negotiating table, they constantly moved the goalposts. And then it turned out that they were conspiring secretly to attack Iran as the negotiations were taking place. And this time around, we had the exact same thing. The negotiations began. The Foreign Minister of Oman said that progress has been made, and he went to Washington to speak to people, to speak with the media, and then immediately the United States carried out this assault that is far more massive than what we saw during the 12-day war, because not only is the Israeli regime attacking Iran, but the United States has brought huge resources to the region at huge cost, and has launched out a massive assault against the country. And you can still hear a baby crying. So, and I don't know if it's you can hear her or not, but the Iranians immediately afterwards, they began retaliation. They were far more prepared this time because they were expecting an attack. The very fact that Trump and his people were lying, like in 2003, Trump went and during the State of the Union address said Iran is building missiles with 10,000 kilometers, and then, saying 30,000 people or whatever were killed, and these fake inflated numbers. And then we saw Witkoff saying that Iran can assemble a nuclear weapon in a week, whereas Trump said he obliterated the nuclear program. He said it so many times, just a few months ago. And then Vance too said we have intelligence or evidence that Iran is trying to develop a nuclear weapon. All of that is inconsistent with what Trump said before, and also what U.S. intelligence has been saying for many years, and continues to say that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. Tulsi Gabbard just testified a few months ago, pointing that out. But Trump said in response that I don't care what she says. Right. So when Trump said these things, and then Witkoff and Vance were saying these things, then people in Iran said, well, they're preparing for war. They're trying to fool people into believing that Iran is some sort of imminent threat to the United States. And so this time, and also they've been preparing for 8 months anyway. Everyone knew that the United States would come back and the Israeli regime would attack again. It's in the nature of the regime. So the response, the retaliation began very swiftly. Last time round, when the Iranians were caught a bit off guard, it took, I think, some 17 hours. This time round, I think within an hour, the Iranians began striking. And they've been striking on multiple fronts this time because the Americans are also involved. So they're striking U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf and in the Arab countries because the United States has bases in all of these Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf. And so Iran is at war with the United States, or it's responding to the U.S. war against Iran, let me put it that way, and the Netanyahu war against Iran too. So it's fighting on multiple fronts as we speak. And as I said, ever since the program began, there was one really big explosion, which was close by, and another one that was further away.
And I'm so sorry about that, and that must be frightening. What can you tell us, Haim, about the military preparedness or lack thereof of Israel and of, I guess, the West too? And what are they thinking? Is this a suicide mission?
Well, first to say that Britain is part of this attack.
Yeah.
For few months, they have been supplying Israel through Akrotiri in Cyprus a number of flights every day, between 5 and 15 flights of large cargo airplanes every day. So when Starmer said we're not part of it, as usual, he's lying. There's hardly anything that he says which is not a lie. He might be on the way out, but Britain is not going to change under another leader. And their position was exemplified in their support of the genocide. There is nothing that they will not do to support Israel and the United States. So that's disturbing where I live in London to know that our government, well, it's not my government, is supporting another genocide and another crime. What happens in Israel is impossible to know, actually, because there is total censorship and punishment promised to anyone who publishes details. But we see quite severe damage and large explosions all over Israel in this system that I'm part of anti-Zionist people connected. Some information is shared. I don't want to put those people into, danger, but it's obvious that the Israelis are keeping mum about what is happening, and there is major damage. Dr. Marandi has said many times, and I follow you very carefully, Mohammad. You said very many times that Israel, in a sense, is one of the problems, not the problem. And the problem is around Iran and the Arab countries. And this is a terrible thing that they have done. All of them have offered their countries, their economies, their gifts, of course, to your own president. And basically, they allowed the West to use the Arab space as a space of war against Iran, without precedent. So Iran is not just fighting the West, but is also fighting most of the Arab countries that are part of this. And that's very shameful. First of all, the Arab countries are Muslim. And I don't understand what is in it for them, apart from their own destruction. In Israel, they are now talking about destroying Turkey next, Pakistan, and Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is serving, I'm not talking about the other countries, they're all serving the American cause. And at the same time, they are putting themselves in danger of being the next to be attacked. So this is really idiotic. What I'm very worried about, and I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say about this, Dr. Marandi, is I think that Iran can and does cause damage to Israel. It's not standing aside this time. And I don't think it should have at all been negotiating, because the negotiation was just a ruse and a cover-up for the attack, like the first time. There is no way you can negotiate with Kushner and Witkoff or with Trump, and the Russians have found that out as well. So what Israel is now facing is destructive. They may well regret, and I hope they do regret, what they have done. All the damage, not just in the last 2 days, but all the damage that they have caused to Iran over the years. I hope they regret that. But the danger is that both Israel and the United States are nuclear powers. And as the run out of ammunition, which they will. And the Americans will run out of ammunition, I believe, before the Iranians. We know that from the 12-day war, where they came running to the Americans. The Israelis came running to the Americans and said, "Get me out of here. We're running out of, missiles, and we can't. Our defense is short." So once this happens, it may happen in a week. It may happen in 2 weeks or more. In Israel, they're talking about few days to end the war. This is like they were talking about in the same way in 2023 when Hamas attacked on the 7th of October, and they said there will be 7 or 10 days and we will finish them. So if they, after 2.5 years, they're still fighting Hamas, they think they can defeat Iran at all, and not to talk about few days. So I think what is very frightening here is when Israel realizes that they are running out of ammunition, conventional ammunition, they may use what is in Israel called the Samson option. I'm terrified about this because this will not just harm Iran, it will harm the whole Middle East, and actually is likely to cause the Third World War, a nuclear Third World War.
Can you explain what the Samson option is for people who don't know?
Well, the Samson option relates to the fact that Samson in the Bible, in order to defeat the Palestinian of his time, which were called the Philistines, brought the roof down on everyone, including himself.
Right.
So the Samson option is a suicidal option. And Israel is the most likely country anywhere to do that. And Trump is the most likely president to support him in such an action. And I think that will force the Chinese and the Russians into a nuclear war. And, we are all written off. So I think I'm very worried, not about Israel winning, because I don't think that is going to happen, but I'm very worried about Israel losing and then using that card.
Right. So a question to both of you is what on earth, and I know we're not inside of people's minds, but what is motivating this? Because there's so much talk of the U.S. doing Israel's bidding. And of course, there is a very strong Israel lobby, but it's not like there aren't neocons in the U.S. government. And it's not like there isn't a kind of indigenous native, as in native to the U.S. government. I'm not talking about people, obviously. What is behind this? I mean, you have Jewish Zionism, you have Christian Zionism, you have this Greater Israel Project. In fact, Brad just texted me. Israel is all about building Greater Israel, and much like the Nazis, will not stop trying to take more and more territory unless they are stopped. And here we go. Okay, but in the case of Israel, support in the West is rooted in Christian evangelicals. Oh wait, I didn't see. Can you show the first one, Brad? Your first one? I only see this second one. Or do you not have that one? Okay. They're trying to create Greater Israel, and they will not stop unless they're stopped. Same way Trump is trying to create Greater America. But in the case of Israel, its support in the West is rooted in Christian evangelicals et al., who believe this is all in pursuit of bringing about biblical prophecy or whatever. But Israel is all about building Greater Israel, and much like the Nazis, will not stop trying to take more and more territory unless they are stopped, in my opinion. So, I mean, this is how does the world deal with this? I keep saying that there has to be some kind of global cooperation. That the only, I mean, we don't have the Soviet Union anymore, right? Obviously, the only way it seems like the West, and it's not just the West, I guess the West and its Arab enablers or its Arab conspirators, collaborators, can be stopped is if the many governments that are less powerful unite together and cause, military damage or economic damage. What is to be done? I know it's an overwhelming question, but Dr. Marandi and then Haim, please.
Well, first I'd like to ask, respond to the question about why Iran negotiates, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Contrary to what they say in the West, and I'm sure that three of you know this quite well.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry to interrupt you. Please, this is not out of insecurity or self-validation. We have over 15,000 people watching, and very few have liked. And I know that's not because you don't like it. It's just because I haven't trained you yet well enough, because we have a lot of new people. Like the stream because you don't want the bots. We do have more bots than usual to win. And also you don't want the algorithmic suppression and tech bros to win either. They don't want people hearing this. Despite that, we have a lot of viewers, but please like the stream and share it because we need as many people as possible to hear this. Okay, sorry. Back to you, Dr. Marandi.
Sure. And please like so that all the things that Katie said would happen and that the bots would be defeated.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
When they do that. But basically, Iran is a country which has very diverse schools of thought and very different world. But in the West, they say it's a dictatorship, and so it's it's a one-man show or one-man rule. It's not at all like that. So in Iran, you do have a significant number of people who believe that we should negotiate, and they think that there may be a solution. I agree with you. During the first series of negotiations and the more recent ones, meaning 8-9 months ago, and now I was convinced that we're not going to get a solution. Even when the JCPOA was signed in 2015 during Obama, I was there. I was with the team.
Right.
And I told Dr. Zarif, who was the foreign minister back then, that I don't think the Americans are going to abide by their commitments. And they didn't under Obama.
You were an advisor.
I was a media advisor, yes.
Media advisor, okay.
So I've been skeptical for a long period of time. But there are a number of things. One is that if the state, if the government, if the administration, or at least parts of the state, or public opinion want to negotiate, and the government or the state decides not to do so, then if something happens, the Americans will say,
exactly,
there was a solution, you refrained from even talking, so it's your fault.
Right.
And you know how Western media works, you know how Western think tanks work. As we speak, we negotiated, there was progress, the United States again carried out a blitzkrieg attack, and Western media is blaming Iran. And even those who are opposed to the war, they say Iran is evil, but we shouldn't attack. And in a sense, in the previous show that we were talking, I believe that these people are just as bad as the neocons because they legitimize aggression by saying that the Iranians are evil or the Venezuelans are evil. No, if anyone's evil, it's the country that wants to wage war, not the victim. So that even using that language and opposing war enables war because it sort of it attempts to, or at least effectively legitimizes it or makes it seem legitimate, not that it really is legitimate. But in any case, so if there's war, then these people say, look what you brought upon us. We could have had a solution, but you were stubborn, you refused to talk. So the Iranians negotiated. It's useful for internal politics, internal public opinion, but also external public opinion, because again, the Western media is hostile towards Iran. So at least if the Iranians are trying, or at least as seen to be trying, then countries in the global South that have influence, they would understand, or they would see that, yes, the United States is not being honest. The United States is just using this as a ruse, and it is secretly conspiring. In both cases, that's what the United States did in the last year, that the negotiations were simply a tool so that the United States could attack Iran. That's my interpretation. So I agree, but I do think that it is necessary at times to negotiate, because if you have and remember, the United States and Iran is unique in this regard. The United States and the West have built an elaborate Persian language media apparatus that's hostile towards Iran, hundreds of media outlets. There are more anti-Iranian media outlets outside of Iran than there are media outlets inside Iran. And they're extremely hostile, and they're very well funded. And there are troll farms in Albania. They have one that, as I said, posts thousands of people. So these media outlets are constantly trying to, based on the interests of Western governments, tell Iranians that you could have had a deal, but you insisted, your government insisted, they were stubborn, they were mule-headed, and we were forced to act. Of course, that doesn't legitimize war anyway, but you get what I'm saying. So I think in many instances, the government or the state has to do certain things that may seem useless and a waste of time, but it does so in order to, well, in case, let's say there's a 1% chance that somehow Trump comes to his senses and actually does a deal, well, they will take that opportunity. But the other 99% is that they want to show the Iranian public as well as the international community that we're not the problem.
Right. Yeah, very true.
And then we get to your much deeper question, which I'll do the listening.
Okay. Take it away, Haim. Easy question: how to stop Israel, which is acting like the Nazis, basically.
Basically, Israel
and the West supporters, yeah.
Yeah. Israel is the destructive engine, the chaos engine of the West. This is how it started since 1948. It joined the two decrepit empires in 1956 by attacking the brightest light in the Arab world, President Nasser, and his Pan-Arabism program of having a new modern Arab world. The minute that he talked about that, he became a target. And Egypt became a target, of course. And so Israel started with the colonial powers and is still with the colonial powers. One thing which is good is that the colonial powers are in serious decline, in terminal decline. And Israel is sharing also this terminal decline. I believe that Zionism is on the way out because it is a movement of the 19th century and we're living in the 21st. But that might be too optimistic. But what is in it for Israel and what do we need to do in order to defeat it? Israel is living on death and destruction, on blood. Yeah, it's a kind of a militarized vampire nation. They live on producing death and destruction and advertising it as a way of selling their wares, which are all causing death and destruction. And they sell it by the unwritten line tried on Palestinians in Gaza. They don't need to tell anyone that that's what they have done. Actually, a lot of these weapons don't work. And we've seen that in the 12-day war. But they sell. That's the most important thing. And now Europe, due to the situation in Ukraine, Europe is a great buyer of those systems that don't work, like, Kippad Barzel, all those systems that don't work are selling very well. They're also selling to India. India is a major buyer of Israel, and India, of course, is a nuclear nation. So Israel is now helping India by working with the Baluchis, which of course, they are no strangers to the situation in Iran as well, with the Baluchis against Pakistan. So Israel has worked out a plan of how to control Western Asia, and is well on the way to achieving it. And Mark Huckabee, shall I call him the ambassador of Israel in Israel? Because he's definitely not an ambassador of the United States, and he doesn't represent real American needs and values. I believe the American people are a decent people with a great history. So they don't need this government and its dogs. And he's one of the dogs. He's a Christian Zionist. He's slightly more extreme than Netanyahu, probably. And totally in agreement that Israel can take, he said that, not
take it all.
Yeah, take it all, we'll help you. Yeah, take it all. So all this is done for a reason. The Israelis act with a lot of sadism, but sadism is not the motive. The motive is control. The motive is running the Middle East. And Iran is standing there as a great opposition to that aim and objective of Israel. So unless the way they think about it, unless we move Iran out of the way, and that means total destruction, it's not Venezuela. They can't do that. And they know that. So what they want to do to Iran is total destruction of the state, the society, the culture. I mean, Iranian culture is 5,000 years old. So we're talking about a destruction on so many levels. They're talking about returning Iran to the Stone Age. This is the kind of talk that Israelis are very good at. And they're very good at killing little babies, the children, tens of thousands of children already in Gaza in the genocide. So the first thing they did actually on the first day is killed those little girls. This is in a sense a signature of the Israeli system. This is their signature. And they have good information and intel on Iran. And yet, this is the first thing they do. So they didn't do it by mistake. They did it because they wanted to do it. They wanted to break the morale of the Iranian people. The Iranian people are stronger than that. I do believe that. So this is functional. This brutality, this cruelty, this madness is very calculated. It is functional. It is there in order to take over the Middle East. And that's why Iran, and later, they're now talking about it in Hebrew every day, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia will have to disappear as a functioning state. Now, remember, they're not just talking. They have done that in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in the Horn of Africa. Everywhere where the Israelis touch, they touch with death, with death and destruction. And the societies will take maybe 100 years to come back to where they were before the Israelis were involved. So I want to end by saying that this is no longer about Gaza. It's not even about Iran. It is about the project of controlling an important part of the world, which Iran is at the heart of, which Iran has been at the heart of for the last thousands of years. And that's why they will attack it, because it is an important cultural and now also an important nation in many other ways. I mean, not least of all, Iran is an industrial force, despite the attacks, despite the fact that since 1953, the West has not allowed Iran to breathe. I mean, the Iranian society, the Iranian people, the Iranian culture. So the revolution came and changed that, and that is why Iran must be attacked, must be finished as a functioning society, because it is in the way of the project of controlling the Middle East. So until Zionism is finished, I don't talk about killing people. I'm talking about, ideology. You mentioned the Nazis, Katie. Yes, that's what we're talking about. This is an equivalent of, for Jews to come up with something which is an equivalent of Nazism is a terrifying thing. It really is a sad reflection on humanity. Until that ideology and that practice is brought to a heel, none of us is safe. So what can we do? Well, we can do a lot of things, actually. BRICS is not doing enough.
Yeah.
I'm saying this not because I'm against BRICS, but because I think it has to do more in order to save our legal systems, in order to save the UN. Maybe the UN is not possible
in order to save the world, maybe, and humanity.
Exactly. Yeah, to save humanity, to save the planet first. And all this, the wells burning, the explosions. Gaza now is unlivable because they poisoned the air, they poisoned the earth, they poisoned the water, they poisoned the sea. We must stop Zionism so we can get Israel out of the UN. Why is Israel in the UN? Within few years, South Africa was removed from the UN because of apartheid. Now, Israel is 1,000,000 times more evil than South Africa ever was. So why is it still in the UN? Why is Israel the only country that never suffered any sanctions? Look at the sanctions that Iran has since 1980. Within a week of Russia moving into Ukraine, it's immediately suffered incredible sanctions. There are sanctions against China. There are sanctions against many countries, but not against Israel. What's the reason for that? So I think we have ways of controlling things like this, but we are not actually employing those methods. Why are people still trading with Israel? They didn't trade with South Africa. Why are universities in my country here working with universities in Israel, which are training the murderers? So there is a whole range of available sanctions. I just want to end by saying, any system of justice needs sanctions. If a murderer is not punished, then murder is possible. It's regulated. It's regularized. It's normalized.
Right.
That's what we have. So either the UN is operating in a manner that seems to be objective. In other words, if this country is causing the harm and another country is causing a similar harm, they need both to be punished. And actually, at the moment, the only people who are punished are the victims, like the Palestinians, the Iranians, etc. So I think this is unacceptable and will bring to the end of humanity through means which we now see. So we all share the need to control Zionism.
Yeah. And I should also add, when you were talking about how this is, I'll just add that Haim's parents were both survivors of the Holocaust. So it's pretty painful and ironic, obviously, for you to see what the Israeli state is doing vis-a-vis being equivalent to Nazis. Dr. Marandi, what's your response to this? And also let us know, you are probably exhausted. It's late where you are, later where you are, where Haim is. So I'm happy to keep Haim prisoner longer and later than you. But let us know, of course, if you need to tend to anything.
I'll have to leave in about 10 minutes, but
Okay.
To as rightly pointed out, apartheid in Palestine is far worse than in South Africa. When Archbishop Desmond Tutu visited Palestine, and he was from South Africa, of course, for your younger viewers and listeners. He said that things in Israel or in Palestine are far worse than in South Africa, and this was far before October the 7th. This was years ago because he's passed away. So
Right.
The boycotts that we saw in South Africa, the Western governments were supporting apartheid South Africa, but gradually under pressure from civil society, they began to distance themselves. But in the case of Israeli regime, it's really extraordinary how the links and the bonds are so strong. And the British government that we were discussing earlier, it's been carrying out intelligence flights over Gaza during the whole course and as the genocide goes on, but almost since the beginning of the genocide, it's been carrying out intelligence flights over Gaza to help the Israelis with their genocidal assault on Gaza. So that's the West today. The Germans, when Netanyahu attacked Iran during the 12-day war, last time the German chancellor said Netanyahu does our dirty work for us.
Right. That was insane.
And just today, the German chancellor, as Iran is being assaulted, says Iran is illegitimate. So everything that is done to Iran is legitimized through these, or at least given an aura of legitimacy through these narratives. And everything that Israel does is legitimized through these narratives, and it's extraordinary. So it is an uphill battle. Of course, to add some optimism, the mood is changing, even in the West. I saw a Jewish law professor from Harvard. Unfortunately, I didn't save his name, but I saw him give a presentation at some hearing, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
Where he was saying, I guess you know who I mean, but a young man, lawyer, well-spoken, and he was saying that we cannot equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and he was saying that I think he said that young American Jews between the age I may be wrong a bit, but between 19 or 18 and 29 or something like that. The majority of them, I think he said, consider themselves to be anti-Zionist Jews, but let's say non-Zionist Jews. But
Sure.
This is how I remember it. It was online. It was on YouTube, so I'm sure your viewers could find
Yeah,
it.
we can.
But the point is that the mood is changing, and young people in the United States think differently than the older generation. And we saw the poll come out, I think it was Pew, I may be wrong. I have a terrible memory. But a couple of days ago, where for the first time in the United States, the sympathy for the Palestinians is greater than for Israel. So you see the young Jewish population, young Americans in general, and of course across the world, it's even more so because the United States is the most heavily propagandized country in the world and the most pro-Zionist, especially with the very large number of Christian Zionists that they have. And Huckabee, of course, the outrageous things that he said may seem outrageous to us, but to that segment of the Christian Zionist population, I suppose they see it all as absolutely acceptable. And I personally think this is unofficial Western policy and unofficial US policy. Just like the two-state solution, it was never really Western policy. It was just a way to buy time so that the Israelis could colonize. The unofficial policy was to allow Israel to colonize the West Bank but they would give lip service to the two-state solution. Here, I think it's the same. They talk about sovereignty and that Israel should not colonize, but unofficially, I think that Huckabee's position is the position in Washington and probably many European capitals as well. So you do have this reality that the wealth and power and the political establishment is completely on the side of the Israeli regime. And of course, mainstream media and legacy media or Epstein class media is completely captured. And so is social media platforms to a large degree. But despite all that, you see the younger generation, which is not very powerful financially or politically, but still it's a force to reckon with. And even some older people, I think I'm pretty sure that older people to a lesser degree are shifting. Right. They are changing. So what happens? How long will this take? What will be the end result? I don't know. But getting back to Iran, I don't believe that the United States and the Israelis will succeed. And I personally think that murdering Ayatollah Khamenei and making him a martyr actually strengthens him and strengthens the resistance and makes people more determined and steadfast, not just in Iran, but also in Iraq and other places where the resistance has a lot of sympathy and support. And we're seeing sympathy and support grow. The number of people in different countries, in different parts of the world that have shown support for Ayatollah Khamenei over the last day and a half is quite extraordinary. But I think that ultimately the Israeli regime and the Americans they'll fail the war. In war, everyone loses. I mean, war is just a terrible thing. I've lived through war, and I can say that with great confidence. In war, everyone loses. But relatively speaking, or let's say, for the United States not to win, that's a failure. And I think that the cost of this war, both financial, direct and indirect, and the burden of the war is going to increase. And I think that ultimately Iran is going to deal the United States and the Israeli regime a strategic defeat. It will come at a great cost. As we've been speaking, as I said, there were at least 2 explosions, one very close by. And so, I'm sure some people are either dead or injured or property has been destroyed or, this is going on day and night every day. So I don't want to ignore the reality that war is a horrible thing. But I think that the U.S. failure means Iran's victory. And if the United States fails, and I think it will be very difficult for the United States ever to return again for a second round, especially as the world is changing and as the West is declining, as was in my opinion, rightly pointed out. So I do see signs to be optimistic, but I also see why we could, if someone was pessimistic, I would understand that. But we have to see how things play out. It's a very complicated thing. It's quite extraordinary for me that Huckabee says the quiet part out loud, and Turkey continues to transport oil from Baku. The Emirates continues to have a relationship. All of these countries are giving the United States the capability to attack Iran, whereas a weakened Iran would make the chances of the Israeli regime turning on them much more likely. So, and I think the reason is that these regimes are proxies. Turkey is a bit different, but Turkey is in the American camp. And we saw that when Trump had his really silly show in Egypt after the ceasefire, the circus, Erdogan went and helped whitewash the genocide that Trump carried out. And he had his hand on his chest, and when Trump said he's my close friend, whenever I needed him, he was there for me. So I'm not optimistic about any of these governments.
Right.
But I think that Iran's resistance will bear fruit.
Yeah, and just so people know, I just want to share some quick updates. I'm just looking at the CBC, and some of the latest updates are the Pentagon confirmed Sunday that 3 U.S. troops have been killed. The first American casualties of the conflict now on the second day. Iran's military has lashed out, this language, against the strikes with missiles targeting ships and countries across the Middle East. Israeli medics say at least 8 people were killed in a blast near Jerusalem. Iranians were gathering Sunday for the funeral of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And it says also here, who was killed along with about 40 other senior members of the Islamic Republic's regime in the initial onslaught. Intelligence gathered over months by the CIA and shared with Israeli counterparts led to the missile strike that killed Khamenei and other officials. A person familiar with the matter confirmed to CBS News. And Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said his country's strikes on Iran, quote, will increase even more in the coming days. And, quote, President Trump said he's agreed to speak with Iran and said the military operation is proceeding, quote, ahead of schedule, end quote. And also, apparently, there are going to be talks between Trump and Iran's new leadership. So, just want to share some of that.
Highly unlikely, the last part.
Yeah.
If it's okay, I'd love to stay, but
no.
I'm forced to go.
No, please do. Yes. Please stay safe. Thinking of you, all the people of Iran, you and your family, and please come back soon. Although after, hopefully, you'll get some rest first, because we need you healthy. Yeah,
we're with you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
See you soon, hopefully.
Yes, inshallah. If you are watching this live, you are so in luck, because you get this 1 hour and 42-minute stream for free. If you're watching this later and you want to see the full thing, you will definitely want to become Patreon members if you're not already at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show, because there you can see a great segment with Haim Bresheeth Zabnner, who speaks about the Epstein button. He also reacts to Lindsey Graham and talks about why he thinks Israel is finished, and signs of the empire's decline are all over the place. And as always, please do join us on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. On 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Someone said, isn't Patreon capitalism? Well, Mr. Terrible, as you're named, I'm not calling you that, that's your name. We do live in the capitalist world system. You can read Emmanuel Wallerstein talk about that. But we do need to pay people for their work, because people in this world have to pay for food and rent and stuff like that. So that is why we have a Patreon. So patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Please do give this a thumbs up. Yeah, I know, stupid question. It's kind of like when people ask socialists how they can have an Apple Watch or something, or an iPhone. Please do give this a thumbs up. Please do subscribe so you don't miss any more streams. We will see you at least Tuesday night live at 7 p.m. EST. And anything else that we need to make sure people know or do, Brad?
No, I think unless you wanted to read some super chats.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Let's read some super chats. Okay, really quickly. Let's see. I'm going to read some super chats that are nice. Okay, so thank you for becoming a new member, Alexander. Thank you for becoming a new member. Thank you for the super chat, Al-Zubaidi. Thank you, Anne, for becoming a new member. Let's see. Then I'm in your head reminds us, some of you, quoting Trump, yes, some of you will DIE, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Lord Farquaad, also Donald Trump.
Farquaad from Shrek.
Oh, thank you, Lord Farquaad, also Donald Trump. Yes, good call. Katie Halper, Iranians will be free. Yes, we hope that the Iranians will be free from Western aggression. Definitely. Katie Halper. Oh, okay. Well, I will. Okay, this is interesting. Katie Albert, please watch the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize ceremony in full. Thanks for the super chat. Then you might think about who you have as a guest on your show. People of the world deserve better than this PR machine you support. Yeah, should I have Karina Machado on the show? The Nobel Peace Prize winner. She's great. Really inspiring regime change proponent. She's a regime change loser. She didn't even get to be named. And she's so committed to peace and it's so embarrassing. You know, she, of course, offered her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, and the Nobel Committee was upset about that. But who are they? Because they chose to give it to her. That's what
but then Trump totally basically dropped her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She didn't get to be, in power. Okay. I'll ask this to, I will ask this to Dr. Marandi. Can a new Ayatollah, Eduardo Dorado asks, can a new Ayatollah revoke the fatwa on nuclear war? It's a good question. Again, these people who our media portrays as like so violent and irrational and belligerent are the ones who have literally a fatwa against nuclear war. Let's see. Believe it or not, the world teacher will be seen and heard by all as soon as we're ready. Okay. Looking forward. Let's see. Super sticker from Ron. Thank you. Super sticker from Karen. Thank you. Super sticker from Farzan Nadim. Thank you for that. Hello from A2 Michigan. Please stay safe. Thank you for that. African People's Socialist Party knows that decolonized and oppressed people the world over are fighting against the empire. APSP plenary 417 to 419, so April 17th to 19th. That's the Uhuru people. We've had them on. Eshatella, Omali Eshatella is a great leader, and they, of course, have been persecuted and prosecuted by the U.S. government under Biden, by the way. Katie enjoyed dinner on me. You can do better. Well, thank you for that $2 contribution to dinner. And thank you for your super chats. I like when our critics donate to the show. Thank you. Super sticker from Good Natured Zab. Oh, okay. Sorry. Zabner, you have no money and are paid for. Well, you just contradict Mark. I think you can do better, because if he's paid for, then presumably he gets money. Yeah, he's paid by big anti-Zionist Jew lobby, the big anti-AIPAC lobby.
I can confirm that that's not accurate.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Yeah. Baluch people in the southeast are 2% of Iran's population. They don't pose a threat to the Persian core. Let's see. Okay, as an Arab, I cannot be unhappy. This is from Hocus Pocus. As an Arab, I can not be unhappy about the downfall of the Iranian regime. At the same time, I cannot be happy about the destruction of the great Persian culture. Okay. Smash that like button. Yes. New member. Thank you, John, darling. And new member from T. Newman. Thank you so much. Marandi, you have zero voice without the West. I don't know what that's about, but okay. I keep selecting him. Thank you, Warlocklander, for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you for the super chat sticker, Zafo. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see this. Can I get a hi from Mohammad Marandi? I will tell him, Trader BZ, that you said hi. Thank you, Falcon, for the super chat. And let's see. Thank you for this. Naomi Digyan. We must not only learn to tolerate our differences, we must welcome them as the richness and diversity which can lead to true intelligence. That's Albert Einstein. We got a quote here from Frank Zappa, provided by Paul Gibby. Frank Zappa, when the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will take down the scenery, they will pull back the curtains, they will move the tables and chairs out of the way. New member, thank you, Old Haim. Thank you for the super chat, RoboCat. Thank you for becoming a new member, Leanne. The world has two soulful capitals, Iran and Kashmir. Thank you for that. Ordok. Another new member, Mark Bulmer. Thank you, Mark. And that is it for our super chats. And we are so grateful to all of you for tuning in on this Sunday. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more of these chats, of these live streams. And thank you, Nate, as always, for the research. Thank you, Fanta Miss Fanta, for the clip. And we will see you Tuesday night, if not before then. Okay, bye, everyone.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!